In the heart of Barcelona, a structure rises like a mountain of stone and light. A cathedral still under construction more than 140 years after it began. The Basílica de la Sagrada Família, the life's work of Antoni Gaudí, is not just a church. It is an act of devotion cast in stone, a place where architecture, nature, and spirituality unite in a symphony of geometry and faith. With its soaring towers, sculptural facades, and celestial interiors, the Sagrada Família is Gaudí's magnum opus, a temple of timeless vision that continues to shape the future of architecture. In the late 19th century, Barcelona was a city in transformation, industrializing rapidly, embracing new ideas in art and design, and seeking a cultural identity rooted in its Catalan heritage and Catholic faith. It was in this environment that the idea for a new monumental church emerged, one that would reflect the city's spiritual renewal and honor Christian values through architecture and symbolism. Originally envisioned by Francisco de Paula del Villar as a neo-Gothic design, the project soon passed to a rising talent, Antoni Gaudí, who would completely reimagine the structure as a towering synthesis of nature, faith, and form. Gaudí took over the project in 1883, at the age of 31. What began as a modest Gothic church quickly evolved into something entirely original, a new architectural language born of Gaudí's faith, mathematics, and study of the natural world. From that moment forward, the Sagrada Família would become his life's mission. He once said, "My client is not in a hurry," referring to God, a declaration of his belief that sacred architecture must transcend time. Gaudí devoted over 40 years of his life to the project, and the last 15 years exclusively. When he died in 1926, only a fraction of the basilica was complete, but his plans and models laid the path for future generations to continue his vision. Gaudí's architectural thought was radical. He rejected straight lines and embraced the forms of nature as divine geometry. His work on the Sagrada Família represents one of the most profound examples of organic architecture ever conceived. His guiding principles included nature as structure and inspiration. Gaudí modeled columns after trees, using hyperboloids, paraboloids, and helicoids to mimic branching trunks. The result is a forest-like interior where light filters through stained glass like sunlight through leaves. Symbolism in every stone. Every element of the Sagrada Família tells a spiritual story. From the Nativity facade, celebrating the birth of Christ, to the Passion facade, depicting his suffering, Gaudí infused deep Catholic symbolism into every sculptural surface. Geometry as divine order. Gaudí employed advanced geometry and catenary arches to achieve both structural strength and aesthetic beauty, using gravity-based models with hanging chains to study load paths. These methods allowed him to eliminate buttresses and design with lightness and verticality. A living structure. Gaudí believed architecture should evolve like a living organism. The Sagrada Família's non-repetitive forms, flowing lines, and textured surfaces reflect a sense of growth, transformation, and transcendence. The execution of the Sagrada Família has spanned generations, combining old-world craftsmanship with 21st-century technology to fulfill Gaudí's sacred vision. 3 iconic facades. The Nativity facade, designed by Gaudí himself, is richly ornamental, almost Gothic in emotion, bursting with flora, fauna, and life. The Passion facade, completed posthumously, is stark and angular, reflecting the suffering and sacrifice of Christ. The Glory facade, still under construction, will be the most monumental, symbolizing the path to eternal life. Towering spires. Once complete, the basilica will feature 18 towers, each symbolizing a biblical figure. The central tower of Jesus Christ will rise to 172.5 meters, making it the tallest church in the world. Interior light and color. The interior is bathed in color, thanks to massive stained glass windows designed to change throughout the day, symbolizing the divine presence in every hour. Craft meets technology. Modern architects have used Gaudí's original plaster models and 3D scanning to reconstruct his intentions. Advanced fabrication and parametric design now accelerate construction while remaining faithful to Gaudí's spirit. The Sagrada Família is more than a monument. It is a living process. It is the most visited monument in Spain, drawing millions each year not just to witness its scale, but to experience its soul. It has become a symbol of Catalonia, blending regional pride with universal spirituality. It redefines sacred architecture, influencing generations of architects who continue to learn from Gaudí's marriage of structure, light, and nature. Projected to be completed by the centenary of Gaudí's death in 2026, the Sagrada Família remains a beacon of faith, creativity, and perseverance. A work of architecture not frozen in time, but growing with it. The Basílica de la Sagrada Família is not merely a church. It is a spiritual epic told in stone and color, an eternal symbol of Gaudí's belief in the divine power of architecture. If you've been inspired by this deep exploration of one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements, be sure to subscribe for more journeys into the world's most iconic designs and the minds that shaped them. Tucked away in the historic Gracia district of Barcelona, Casa Vicens stands as the first built masterpiece of a young architect who would come to define Catalan Modernism, Antoni Gaudí. Completed in 1885, this residence is far more than just a home. It is Gaudí's manifesto, an architectural debut that bursts with color, craftsmanship, and a deep reverence for nature. Casa Vicens is the first bold brushstroke in a career that would forever transform the language of architecture. In the late 19th century, Barcelona was undergoing a profound transformation. The Example project had begun expanding the medieval city into a modern metropolis, and the growing bourgeoisie sought homes that reflected their newfound prosperity and identity. Amid this urban growth, the Gracia neighborhood, once a rural town and now a fashionable suburb, became a canvas for ambitious architecture. It was here that Antoni Gaudí, just 31 years old, received his first major commission to design a summer residence for stockbroker Manuel Vicens from Montaner. The result would be a structure unlike anything the city had ever seen, a kaleidoscope of Eastern influence, Catalan tradition, and imaginative innovation. Manuel Vicens, a wealthy tile manufacturer and financier, wanted a residence that would reflect both his status and his craft. His vision aligned perfectly with the talents of Gaudí, then a recently graduated architect from the Escola Técnica Superior d'Arquitectura in Barcelona. Commissioned in 1878 and completed in 1885, Casa Vicens was Gaudí's first opportunity to fully express his artistic and architectural ideas. This house would not only showcase his signature themes, color, geometry, and the natural world, but would also lay the foundation for the spectacular works that followed, including Park Güell, Casa Batlló, and La Sagrada Família. Gaudí's architectural philosophy was rooted in three central ideas: nature as inspiration, craft as expression, and structure as poetry. At Casa Vicens, these ideas come together in a rich symphony of form and material, influenced by nature and symbolism. Gaudí designed the house as a living homage to the natural world. The entire structure is adorned with botanical motifs, including cast iron palm fronds, ceramic marigolds, and ivy-inspired carvings. The tile patterns repeat the local flora, reinforcing his belief that architecture should grow from the landscape it inhabits. Moorish and Oriental influence. Drawing inspiration from Islamic architecture and Oriental design, Gaudí fused Mudéjar aesthetics with Catalan craftsmanship, seen in the horseshoe arches, intricate latticework, and bold tile mosaics that evoke the Alhambra in Moorish palaces. Total work of art. Gaudí designed every element of the house, from the exterior facade to the interior furniture and ironwork, creating one of the earliest examples of a Gesamtkunstwerk, or total work of art. No detail was too small. Every doorknob, grille, and cornice played a role in the overall visual harmony. The execution of Casa Vicens was a daring and joyful departure from conventional architecture. Gaudí embraced artisanal methods and local materials, infusing the home with a sensory richness that engaged the eye, the hand, and the imagination. Vibrant facade, color as structure. The exterior is a mosaic of red brick and green and white glazed ceramic tiles, arranged in bold patterns that reflect both natural forms and Moorish tilework traditions. The tilework celebrates marigolds, a plant that grew on the original site of the house. cast iron details, nature and metal. The gates and grills are made of wrought iron, bent and twisted into organic shapes that mimic palm fronds and vines. Gaudí worked closely with skilled metalworkers to bring these elements to life. The smoking room, immersion into ornament. Perhaps the most spectacular room is the arabesque smoking room, covered in papier-mâché tiles painted in gold and cobalt blue, with a ceiling that evokes the starry sky of Islamic architecture. It's a room designed for relaxation and reflection, a space that transcends time and culture. Integration with the garden. Gaudí saw the house and its surrounding garden as a unified whole. The house opens naturally to outdoor terraces and pathways, blurring the line between architecture and nature. The garden was planted with native species, designed to feel like an extension of the house itself. Casa Vicens was the first full expression of Antoni Gaudí's architectural genius, and many of the ideas introduced here, nature as a model, the use of vivid color, the fusion of structure and ornament, would evolve into hallmarks of his mature style. It marked the beginning of Catalan Modernisme's golden age. It introduced Gaudí's lifelong fascination with geometry, light, and the organic. It laid the groundwork for masterpieces like Casa Batlló, Park Güell, and La Sagrada Família. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2005, Casa Vicens opened to the public in 2017 after meticulous restoration. Today, it remains a celebration of youthful vision, reminding us that innovation often begins with the courage to defy tradition. The Casa Vicens is more than just Gaudí's first house. It's a vibrant tapestry of ideas, a symbol of his boundless creativity and reverence for nature. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Antoni Gaudí's architectural beginnings, be sure to subscribe for more explorations of the world's most iconic and visionary architectural works. Along Barcelona's grandest boulevard, Passeig de Gràcia, one building captures the essence of Catalan identity, Gothic revival, and modernist experimentation. This is Casa Amatller, designed in 1900 by Josep Puig or Sir Cadafalch, a contemporary of Antoni Gaudí and a leading figure of Catalan Modernisme. More than a home, Casa Amatller is a statement, a cultural manifesto in brick and stone, blending medieval romanticism with the spirit of industrial progress. At the turn of the 20th century, Barcelona was undergoing a transformation. The old medieval city had expanded into the Eixample, a vast grid planned by Ildefons, where bourgeois families commissioned homes that reflected their identity, wealth, and Catalan pride. Passeig de Gràcia became the city's architectural showcase. Here, a group of visionary architects, Gaudí, Domènech y Montaner, Puig y Cadafalch, redefined the language of urban architecture. In 1898, the wealthy chocolatier Antoni Amatller purchased a 19th century house at number 41 and entrusted his friend Puig y Cadafalch to transform it into a bold architectural symbol for a new Catalonia. Antoni Amatller was more than a businessman. He was a patron of the arts, a photographer, and a promoter of Catalan heritage. His interest in Gothic architecture, medieval forms, and the nationalist Renaixença movement aligned perfectly with Puig y Cadafalch's vision. Rather than demolish the existing building, the architect chose to reconstruct and reinterpret it, preserving the structure but reinventing the facade and interiors to reflect Catalan history, artisanal craft, and industrial modernity. Casa Amatller represents Puig y Cadafalch's unique synthesis of styles, a combination of Nordic Gothic forms, Catalan craftsmanship, and Modernisme ideology. Flemish Gothic gable. The building's most iconic feature is its stepped gable, inspired by the houses of Bruges and Ghent. It crowns the facade like a crest, symbolizing Catalonia's medieval pride and European connection. Asymmetry and decorative complexity. Windows of varying shapes, projecting balconies, and intricate ironwork create a lively asymmetrical composition, contrasting with the uniformity of neighboring facades. Sculptural and symbolic ornament. Sculptures by Eusebi Arnau depict dragons, knights, and allegories of industry and culture. The ornamentation is not just aesthetic, it's narrative, weaving the story of Amatler's legacy and Catalonia's mythic past. Integration of art and architecture. Like his contemporaries, Puig believed in the total work of art. Stained glass, furniture, mosaics, and ceramics were all designed to harmonize with the architecture. Executed between 1898 and 1900, Casa Amatller is a triumph of craftsmanship and innovation. While inspired by the past, its construction reflects the values of progress and personalization. The entry vestibule. Horses once entered the building through a tiled passage leading to a central courtyard. Overhead, stained glass ceilings flood the space with filtered light. An interplay of color and geometry. Main staircase and ironwork. A dramatic staircase rises beneath a sculpted skylight. The iron balustrades forged by Manuel Ballerín exhibit organic motifs and precise craftsmanship. Interior program. The rooms were designed for both living and working, incorporating modern conveniences alongside elaborate woodwork, embossed leather, and hydraulic tiles. Attention to detail. Every hinge, doorframe, and light fixture was designed or approved by Puig. The result is total coherence, a home where architecture, design, and purpose converge. Today, Casa Amatller stands as one of the best preserved examples of Catalan Modernisme. It represents the intersection of history and modernity, of medieval inspiration and industrial ambition. It stands shoulder to shoulder with Casa Batlló and Casa Leo Morera, forming the Illa de la Discordia, a testament to architectural creativity in the heart of Barcelona. And it is a monument not only to an architect or a patron, but to a culture in search of identity, beauty, and expression. Carefully restored, and now home to the Amatller Institute of Hispanic Art, the house continues to inspire, a museum, a home, and a living story. Casa Amatller is not just an architectural jewel, it's a window into the soul of Catalan Modernisme. If this journey through one of Barcelona's treasures moved you, subscribe for more cinematic stories of the buildings and minds that shaped our modern world. High above the city of Barcelona, nestled in the hills of El Carmel, lies a park that seems to blur the line between architecture, art, and nature. A place of playful curves, vibrant colors, and fantastical structures. This is Park Güell, one of Antoni Gaudí's most iconic masterpieces. A fusion of landscape design, urban planning, and organic architecture, Park Güell was born from a utopian vision and became a symbol of the architect's creative genius and spiritual connection to nature. At the turn of the 20th century, Barcelona was expanding rapidly. With the Eixample grid reshaping the city, wealthier citizens looked to the hills above the urban center for fresh air, space, and exclusivity. The El Carmel Hill, located in the then independent town of Gracia, offered panoramic views and a natural, rugged landscape, an ideal setting for a visionary project that would combine urban escape with architectural imagination. In 1900, Josep Güell, a wealthy industrialist and patron of Gaudí, envisioned a private residential estate inspired by English garden cities, a community of 60 villas immersed in landscape greenery. He commissioned Antoni Gaudí, already renowned for his distinctive style and deep Catholic faith, to oversee the urban planning and architectural vision. Between 1900 and 1914, Gaudí and a team of artisans transformed the barren hillside into a fantastical environment, but the residential aspect failed to attract buyers. Only 2 houses were ever built, one of which Gaudí himself lived in. Despite its commercial failure, the site became a public park in 1926, and today it stands as one of Barcelona's most beloved and visited landmarks, a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1984. Gaudí approached Park Güell with the belief that nature was the supreme architect. His design philosophy was rooted in the organic, the symbolic, and the spiritual. His thought process revolved around several key principles. Integration with the landscape. Rather than alter the hill, Gaudí adapted his architecture to the contours of the terrain, carving out paths, viaducts, and platforms that followed the natural slope. Organic forms and geometry from nature. The park is filled with hyperbolic paraboloids, helicoids, catenary arches, and undulating lines, echoing natural forms like waves, tree trunks, and cave mouths. Symbolism and spirituality. Gaudí imbued the park with religious and Catalan nationalist symbolism, from the dragon at the entrance to the cross atop the Calvary Hill. Color and craft as expression. The use of trencatis, broken tile mosaic, was not only decorative but also sustainable, repurposing discarded ceramics to create vibrant, textural surfaces that glisten in the Mediterranean sun. Though never completed, Parc Güell is a masterpiece in both landscape architecture and artistic expression. Its execution reflects Gaudí's ingenuity, attention to craft, and deep understanding of natural systems. The entrance staircase and dragon fountain. A grand staircase leads to the park's heart, flanked by vivid mosaic creatures. At its center lies the famous multicolored dragon, or salamander, now a symbol of Gaudí's work and Barcelona itself. Hypostyle Hall, the Hall of 100 Columns. Intended as a marketplace for the residential community, this massive forest of Doric-style columns supports the platform above and is engineered to channel rainwater into a cistern, a perfect fusion of aesthetics and functionality. The Nature Square, Plaça de la Natura, a vast open terrace encircled by the famous serpentine bench, designed with ergonomics and social interaction in mind. Covered in trenchadís, the bench forms a living sculpture that undulates like a sea wave. The viaducts and footpaths. Gaudí's network of pathways, colonnaded walkways, and viaducts weave through the landscape like roots, allowing carriages, pedestrians, and nature to coexist in harmony. The laundry room portico. This sloping passage features diagonal stone columns that evoke both tree trunks and waves, tilting like branches growing from the earth. Parc Güell is more than a park. It's a living testament to Gaudí's vision of a world shaped by nature, rooted in culture, and elevated by imagination. It marks a key transition in Gaudí's work from Orientalist influence to his mature, organic style. It pioneered principles of sustainable urban design long before such concepts were mainstream. It continues to inspire artists, architects, and dreamers from all corners of the globe. Gaudí once said, "Originality consists of returning to the origin." At Parc Güell, we see this philosophy brought to life, a space where architecture and earth speak the same language. If this exploration of Parc Güell moved you, imagine what lies behind every curve of Gaudí's architecture. Subscribe for more cinematic journeys into the world's most visionary buildings and the minds that shape them. On the elegant boulevard of Passeig de Gràcia, nestled among ornate 19th century buildings, one house stands apart like a living being, a structure that seems to breathe, shimmer, and move. This is Casa Batlló, one of the most iconic and imaginative creations of Antoni Gaudí. Completed in 1906, it is not just a building. It is a poetic sculpture of stone, glass, and color, a dreamscape born of myth, nature, and modernist innovation. At the turn of the 20th century, Barcelona was in the midst of a cultural and architectural renaissance. The Eixample district, laid out in a grid by Ildefons Cerdà, had become the canvas for the rising stars of Catalan Modernisme. Passeig de Gràcia, once a country road, had become the main artery of wealth and artistic expression, lined with daring new buildings designed to reflect the personality of their owners. It was here that industrialist Josep Batlló, owner of a successful textile factory, purchased an 1877 building and commissioned Gaudí to redesign it. Without demolition, only transformation. The result would be one of the most visionary and unconventional facades in architectural history. By 1904, Antoni Gaudí had already made a name for himself with Parc Güell, Casa Vicens, and the ongoing work on the Sagrada Família. He was at the height of his creative power. When Josep Batlló gave him full creative freedom, Gaudí didn't simply renovate, he reinvented. Over the next 2 years, he transformed a conventional apartment building into a fantastical world of curves, mosaics, and flowing organic forms. Gaudí didn't just design a home, he created a symbol, a house of story and myth, where every detail had poetic and structural meaning. Gaudí's architectural philosophy was rooted in organic inspiration, not imitation of nature, but the use of its logic and beauty in structure and space. Casa Batlló is one of his clearest expressions of this philosophy. His design vision followed key ideas, nature as model and metaphor. The building is inspired by marine life, bones, waves, and animal forms. The interior staircase resembles a vertebral spine. The roof curves like the back of a dragon, and the balconies mimic masks or skulls, earning it the nickname House of Bones. Mythological symbolism. Many scholars see Casa Batlló as an allegorical tale of St. George and the dragon, with the roof's ceramic scales representing the dragon, the cross-shaped turret as St. George's sword, and the balconies as the victim's skulls. Harmony of light, air, and form. Gaudí masterfully controlled natural light and ventilation through the central atrium and careful arrangement of windows, using form and color to shape mood and movement. Total artistic integration. Gaudí designed not only the architecture, but the furniture, railings, doors, skylights, and even doorknobs, creating a true Gesamtkunstwerk, or total work of art. The execution of Casa Batlló was a feat of craftsmanship, engineering, and artistic daring. Gaudí worked with the finest artisans in glass, wood, ceramic, and iron to bring his vision to life. The façade, a mosaic of movement. The undulating front of the house is clad in trenchadisse mosaic, made from broken ceramic tiles in shimmering blues, greens, and violets, like sunlight reflected on water. Each balcony, forged from iron, is unique, organic, and expressive. The noble floor, a surreal interior landscape. The main living level is filled with curving woodwork, fluid walls, and stained glass windows in oceanic colors. The oak staircase resembles the inside of a great animal, and every doorway frames a view, guiding you as if underwater. The light well, a vertical ocean of color. At the building's center, Gaudí designed a light well tiled in gradient blue, lighter at the bottom and darker at the top, to ensure even light distribution. The windows grow larger on higher floors to maintain luminosity, a marvel of passive lighting design. The loft, the skeletal spine. The whitewashed loft features catenary arches resembling a rib cage, light, airy, and intimate. Once used as laundry rooms and storage, it's now one of the most celebrated spaces in the house. The roof, the dragon's back. The rooftop features arched tiles like scales, a bulbous chimney cluster, and a turret crowned by a four-armed cross. Gaudí's signature. It's a fantasy skyline, blending symbolism, color, and structural mastery. Casa Batlló is not just a masterpiece of Catalan modernism. It is a beacon of architectural imagination that continues to inspire. It broke every rule of classical design, opening new paths for biomorphic architecture and surrealism. It influenced generations of designers and artists, from the Art Nouveau movement to today's organic and parametric architecture. In 2005, Casa Batlló was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, joining Gaudí's other masterpieces as part of Barcelona's architectural soul. Today, it welcomes over 1 million visitors annually, not just as a museum, but as a living testament to the power of creativity, nature, and design without limits. Casa Batlló is a place where stone ripples like water, where walls curve like wind, and where every surface speaks of Gaudí's boundless imagination. If you've been inspired by this journey into one of the world's most extraordinary houses, subscribe for more deep dives into architecture that dares to dream. Amid the tight medieval fabric of Barcelona's El Born district, a jewel of glass, ceramic, and sculpted stone erupts into view. This is the Palau de la Música Catalana, designed in 1905 by Lluís Domènech i Montaner. A concert hall unlike any other, it was conceived not just as a space for music, but as an act of cultural affirmation, artistic innovation, and architectural brilliance. It is a place where modernism meets music, where structure becomes melody and decoration becomes expression. At the dawn of the 20th century, Catalonia was undergoing a Renaixença, a cultural renaissance grounded in language, history, and identity. Barcelona, its capital, became the epicenter of this movement, transforming not only through politics and literature, but through architecture and the arts. The Orfeó Català, a Catalan choral society founded in 1891, dreamed of a concert hall that would embody the Catalan soul, a space where the people could gather to celebrate music, language, and collective memory. In 1905, they entrusted their vision to Louis Domènech sur Montaner, a master architect, historian, and professor, whose designs were deeply tied to Catalan symbolism and civic pride. The Palau de la Música Catalana was funded by the people, donors, musicians, intellectuals, and merchants who saw architecture as an instrument of cultural independence. With a tight urban plot and limited space, Domènech faced a challenge: how to create a monumental hall in a medieval neighborhood. His solution was bold: build vertically, bathe the interior in light, and blur the boundary between structure and sculpture. Domènech of Montaner's architectural approach was deeply informed by craftsmanship, structure, and symbolism. The Palau was his masterpiece, a space where engineering and artistry exist in perfect harmony, synthesis of the arts. Every surface is activated: sculpture, stained glass, ceramics, ironwork, and mosaics are not decorative. They are integral to the structure and narrative. Light as music. The entire hall is illuminated by natural light, from the stained glass walls to the inverted skylight dome, where daylight rains down like a visual crescendo. Catalan identity in form and iconography. Sculptural groups on the facade depict Catalan folk music, classical composers, and the spirit of the Orfeo. Interior motifs celebrate flowers, nature, and freedom, themes tied to the Catalan modernist language. Innovation through structure. Domènech used iron frame construction, allowing wide open spans, curved balconies, and vertical transparency, far ahead of his time, blending tradition with cutting-edge technique. Completed in just 3 years, the Palau de la Música Catalana was inaugurated in 1908, a living expression of light, sound, and Catalan pride. The facade, an exuberant collage of red brick, floral mosaics, sculpted busts, and slender columns. It proclaims art to the street, bringing music into the public realm. The Grand Concert Hall, the only concert hall in Europe naturally lit during the day, crowned by a giant inverted stained glass dome resembling the sun, a beacon of creativity and clarity. The choir balcony and organ. Supported by slender columns and framed by busts of composers, it connects performers and audience with both intimacy and grandeur. The integration of craft. Over 100 artisans, sculptors, glassmakers, ceramicists, blacksmiths, collaborated with Domènech, achieving a Gesamtkunstwerk that stands as one of the greatest concert halls ever built. More than a century after its inauguration, the Palau de la Música Catalana remains a symbol of Catalonia's creative identity. It represents the pinnacle of Catalan Modernisme, alongside works by Gaudí and Puig and Cadafalch. It continues to host concerts, festivals, and educational programs that keep its founding spirit alive. And it stands as a reminder that architecture can do more than shelter us. It can inspire, uplift, and give voice to a people's soul. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1997, the Palau is not only a masterpiece of design, it is a living, resonating monument to cultural resilience and beauty. The Palau de la Música Catalana is not just a building, it's a symphony in stone and glass, a place where light sings and architecture listens. If you've been moved by this journey into the heart of Catalan creativity, subscribe for more cinematic stories of the world's most visionary architecture and the souls who dared to build it. In the heart of Barcelona's Eixample district, among elegant 19th century facades and rigid geometric blocks, one building rises like a wave of stone, organic, alive, and boldly unconventional. This is Casa, better known as La Pedrera, the last major private commission by Antoni Gaudí, before dedicating himself fully to the Sagrada Família. More than a building, it is a radical architectural statement, a tribute to nature, living form, and the future of urban design. At the turn of the 20th century, Barcelona was expanding both physically and culturally. Ildefons-Cerdà's rational grid had reshaped the city, and the Passeig de Gràcia became a showcase of bourgeois prosperity and artistic experimentation. It was here that businessman Pere Milà and his wife Roser Seguimon commissioned Antoni Gaudí to design a bold, modern apartment building, one that would not imitate the past, but redefined the possibilities of architecture. By 1906, Gaudí was already renowned for his imaginative work on Park Güell, Casa Batlló, and the ongoing Sagrada Família. But with Casa he sought to go further, to create a sculptural architecture where nature, structure, and symbolism were inseparable. The result was a building without straight lines, without symmetry, and without historical imitation, a built manifesto of modernism. Gaudí's thinking for Casa was rooted in organic logic, nature's geometry, and the belief in total artistic integration, organic form with no straight lines. The facade flows like a natural cliff face, eroded by time and air. Every curve suggests movement, like a breathing stone. Symbolism and structure. The building evokes marine and geological forms, waves, caves, bones, and fossils. Chimneys resemble warriors or guardians, rich in metaphor and mystery. Light and air through courtyards. Two large elliptical courtyards serve as vertical lungs, channeling natural light and ventilation throughout the building's core. Total work of art. Gaudí designed everything from architecture and ironwork to furniture and fixtures, crafting a unified, immersive experience. Constructed between 1906 and 1912, Casa was both a technical and artistic feat. Gaudí pushed the limits of construction to make his organic vision a built reality. Steel frame structural system. Columns of steel allowed for open-plan interiors, large windows, and flexible apartment layouts, revolutionary for residential design. Self-supporting stone facade. The facade acts like a shell, flowing around the building with no load-bearing role, liberating interior space and form. Sculptural rooftop. The roof is a world of its own. Sculpted chimneys, ventilation towers, and staircases emerge like mythical figures, finished with colorful mosaic or textured stone. Technical innovation. Gaudí included one of the city's first underground garages, natural ventilation systems, and passive solar lighting through thoughtful material placement and window sizing. At the time of its construction, Casa was ridiculed by some who called it La Pedrera, the stone quarry. But Gaudí's vision was not meant for the trends of his time. It was made for the future. It prefigured 20th century modernism. It pioneered expressive forms and structural honesty. In 1984, it was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its cultural and architectural significance. Today, Casa is one of the most visited landmarks in Barcelona, a museum, an icon, and a living example of how architecture can transcend function and become poetry. Casa is not just a house, it is a stone symphony, a spatial sculpture, and one of Antoni Gaudí's most daring achievements, where nature, myth, and form become one. Subscribe for more cinematic journeys into the world's most imaginative buildings and the architects who dreamed them into being. Just across from the monumental towers of the Basílica de la Sagrada Família, a humble red brick building curves like a wave across the pavement. Simple, elegant, and radical. This is the Escola de la Sagrada Família, designed by Antoni Gaudí in 1909. Not for spectacle, but for service. It stands as one of the earliest and purest examples of his belief that architecture must reflect both function and faith. In the early 1900s, Barcelona was a city in transformation. The Example expansion brought new neighborhoods, and the Sagrada Família Basilica was still rising, an epic work of spiritual architecture at the heart of a developing urban landscape. With the basilica under construction, the site also needed to serve the people, especially the children of laborers and residents. In response, a school was planned beside the church, a place to educate the children of workers and neighbors in an atmosphere of care and humility. The Escola de la Sagrada Família was commissioned by the temple's parish and constructed in just 1 year, completed in 1909. It is the only school building ever designed by Antoni Gaudí, yet it bears all the marks of his creative genius. Gaudí offered his design and services freely, an act of devotion and a gesture to the social role of architecture. The building would be modest in size but bold in concept, combining economy, durability, and beauty. Though built with humble materials, Gaudí's school is a masterpiece of form and function. undulating walls and roof. The most striking feature is its wavy brick roof, made from overlapping flat tiles, Catalan vaults. This was not a stylistic flourish. It added structural strength, drained water efficiently, and provided thermal insulation. Material honesty and economy. Built with baked clay brick and mortar, the school used simple materials that were affordable, fireproof, and locally available. Gaudí proved that modern design didn't require opulence, just intelligence, geometry, and stability. The building's curved surfaces are structurally self-supporting. Gaudí applied catenary arches and parabolic forms, distributing loads with mathematical precision, a forerunner of modern, sustainable design, harmony with purpose. The 3 classrooms, open-air gallery, and porch spaces were designed to foster both learning and contemplation. Natural light filters gently through windows, and the proportions create a sense of peace and order. Built quickly but with great care, the Escola de la Sagrada Família expresses Gaudí's core principles. Structural efficiency. The brick vaults required minimal material but offered great strength. This economy of means allowed for fast, reliable construction using local labor. Attention to detail. Even the fence and entry gate show Gaudí's signature curves and ironwork. Form and function are never separate in his vision. Adaptability and airflow. The open-air corridor allowed for natural ventilation, while the curved walls helped deflect direct sun, a passive climate solution ahead of its time. Educational philosophy. The simplicity of the space encourages focus, humility, and harmony with the environment. A reflection of Gaudí's deep Catholic spirituality and humanist values. Though often overshadowed by the Basilica, its neighbors, the Escola de la Sagrada Família is a masterclass in sustainable, human-centered design. It represents Gaudí's only school project and shows his ability to combine engineering logic with moral and social purpose. It influenced later thinking on school architecture, bioclimatic design, and architectural minimalism. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2005, the school now serves as a museum, preserving Gaudí's architectural principles in one of their most distilled forms. In its quiet strength and graceful simplicity, the school reminds us, architecture can teach, not only through space, but through spirit. Gaudí once said, originality consists of returning to the origin. At the Escola de la Sagrada Família, we return to that origin, where architecture begins not with stone, but with people. If this journey into Gaudí's most human-scale creation has inspired you, subscribe to Space Shape and Scale for more explorations of the buildings, ideas, and architects who reshaped our world, one curve, one brick, one vision at a time. Imagine New York City in 1909, steel rising, ambition climbing, and a city inventing the modern skyline. Now imagine something else, a tower unlike anything ever built, conceived not in New York, but in Barcelona, by none other than Antoni Gaudí. This was the hotel attraction, an unbuilt masterpiece that would have redefined the skyscraper as a symbol of nature, faith, and the future. At the dawn of the skyscraper age, an ambitious proposal emerged, a 300-meter-tall hotel in Lower Manhattan, designed by Gaudí for a group of American patrons. Though the commission was never formalized, Gaudí sketched out a building decades ahead of its time, one that would remain hidden in archives until the 1950s. Gaudí didn't design a skyscraper. He imagined a living sculpture, a structure shaped by hyperboloids, catenary arches, and spirals, echoing waves, volcanoes, and seashells. His guiding ideas were radical, organic form over symmetry. The hotel's shape grew like coral from the earth, vertical but fluid, symbolic and sacred, spiritual architecture. Each level served a function, museums, auditoriums, lounges, but all united in a symbolic ascent toward light. Material innovation. Gaudí planned domes of glass, modular rooms, and a lightweight structure using techniques only viable a century later. Though never built, hotel attraction haunts architectural imagination. Rediscovered in 1956 and proposed again after 9/11 as a concept for Ground Zero, it became a symbol of lost possibility, what New York could have been if guided by imagination instead of imitation. It foreshadowed biomorphic design. It challenged the idea of the skyscraper as mechanical. And it proved Gaudí's genius wasn't limited to Barcelona. It was global. Hotel Attraction is more than an unbuilt dream. It's a monument to vision. In Gaudí's hands, even a New York skyscraper became a poem in stone, a fusion of the divine and the futuristic. If you've been inspired by this journey into Gaudí's surreal skyline, subscribe to Space Shape and Scale for more cinematic explorations of architecture that dares to dream.